Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by, having already reviewed the shot on video and made exclusively for video epic. At first was it the purported first movie ever shot on video exclusively for the home video market. Having already reviewed that movie by the name of Blood Cult, my intention of course was to continue on and review the I think the second movie that the same husband-wife duo did and put out, I think a year later, even though it says 85 on this video cassette, stopping on by to review the motion picture by the name of The Ripper. I think if you look at the it's kind of like, well, the box is right there, but here's the box again. There's two boxes. There's one big box there, or cover I should say, and here's another one. But as you can see, possibly on that cover art right there, it says Tom Savini as the Ripper. So my history with this movie goes all the way back to the early 2000s. As a matter of fact, if you look at the spine here, the video store sticker from Video Update at the time says bulk clearance outlet, $2.99. You can see the day, the exact day and month and year that this label was printed, March 26, 2003. So sometime after that date, I became the proud owner of this video cassette. At the time, it was probably sometime in 2003. I never had seen this, and I don't think I necessarily knew it was shot on video at the time I got it. I remember, I'm pretty sure that I got this back in the day. I don't know if I would have paid $3 for this, or as I've mentioned before in several videos, maybe even one of the Blood Cult ones or whatever. Video Update did a promotion back then where you could get 20 tapes for $10, and that may have well been, possibly one of the 20 VHS tapes that I got when they were purging their VHS in the early 2000s. So my first time I ever would have seen The Ripper, and probably the only time, would have been possibly sometime in 2003. I don't think I thought a whole hell of a lot of it at the time, but what prompted this revisiting of The Ripper that I recently did, and which leads to my review of it, and also, as you'll come to find out in days later, my showcasing of the VHS cassette I own of The Ripper, was basically the Vinegar Syndrome, one of many of Vinegar Syndrome's subsidiary labels by the name of, I'm pronouncing it wrong probably, DeGrasser, that's how I pronounce it. Home Video actually put out the Blood Cult, and also, well, not the Blood Cult, but Blood Cult, and also The Ripper on Blu-ray. And right around the time that I was re-watching these and stuff, they were, they went out, they were currently on sale for like $20, and I was like, God, should I buy these? And then I'm like, I better re-watch them first. And if you've seen watch my review of Blood Cult to know how I thought about that. And what's really weird about this review is I meant to do this review a lot sooner, but life happens, this and that. I didn't get around to it. And actually weeks and weeks went by, and I actually got to the point where I had to re-watch it again. So I saw The Ripper for a second time this year. Had to re-watch The Ripper again so I could, do my competent, bring you my most, thorough and competent review for all 10 people who are going to watch this video, or this review, aka video. So I rewatched The Ripper last night, and just in case you're wondering, I'm pretty sure, well, at the time I watched it these 2 times this year, and of course the time I rewatched it last night, is currently available, or at least it was last night, on TubiTV.com, and I can only assume it's like the DeGrasser, Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray like presentation, that is featured on TubiTV.com. And what's really goofy, I don't know what the hell, mood plays a heavy part in this and that, because I'm pretty sure when I revisited Blood Cult and The Ripper the first time weeks ago, I didn't think much of either of them, although I think I liked The Ripper more. And then rewatching it last night, I don't know if it's because it was so fresh and I'd just seen it not weeks ago or whatever, but watching it again, I was like, God, I was actually kind of charmed by it in a stupid, kind of a silly way, and it was just like really weird. And obviously that sale where the Blood Cult, and I don't know why I always say the Blood, I always want to say the before Blood Cult, but Blood Cult Blu-ray and the Ripper Blu-ray are no longer $20. I looked at it last night. The Ripper is now I think $23 if I wanted to buy the Blu-ray of The Ripper, which I'm kind of contemplating. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, but anyway, gosh, I'm here to review the movie. So, but yeah, watching it yesterday, I was kind of like, I was charmed by it. I don't know what the hell, I didn't do any drugs, I don't drink alcohol, I don't know what the hell kind of a mood I was in, where I was actually just watched it with this, like, I don't know what, open mind, and I guess knowing what to expect because I'd seen it weeks prior, and it was just like, the shot on video aspect of it kind of just faded into the background, and I kind of just, strangely enough, kind of enjoyed The Ripper this second time I saw it, this year, and it was just kind of strange. I guess, like I say, the fact that I'd seen it weeks prior just kind of had me more like, knowing what to expect and have my bar lowered accordingly. So just like with Blood Cult, this is a Tulsa, Oklahoma, production, basically made, shot and to be distributed by their own, home video label, whatever the hell it is. United Home Video, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And as I've already mentioned, I'm pretty sure the husband and wife, were they married? Possibly. Husband and wife producing, directing team that did Blood Cult did this a year later. As a matter of fact, if you watch this, there's a clip from Blood Cult in this movie, and just like with kind of like Robot Wars and, no, Shrunken Heads. Someone in the Full Moon movie, Shrunken Heads, was watching the Full Moon movie Robot Wars. So it's been known to happen. The interesting thing about this is when the guy brings up the VHS cover for Blood Cult, I think it's a cover that I'm not familiar with, or maybe it was some completely different version that they maybe did, I don't know what. But when he holds up the cover, the VHS cover for Blood Cult in the motion picture The Ripper, it's not the cover I don't think we're all familiar with or whatever, but that's a side note. But anyway, the premise of this movie, the beginning of it, which I think is probably the worst part of the movie, in that it's like, in my opinion, overly long, and as a matter of fact, the second time I watched it, I pretty much just fast forwarded to the murder, because knowing how long the opening of this movie is, it's almost like, every bit of footage they shot for the opening, whether it was just, it was like every bit of footage they shot for the opening was used in the opening, like just to drag it out as long as possible for some reason. It's the opening scene with like looked like the woman back in the Jack and the Ripper era in London or whatever, when getting out of the carriage, or the horse-drawn carriage or whatever, is like 3 or 4 times longer than it should be. It's really overlong, and of course we all know what's going to happen. She's going to get ripped by the Ripper. And that cuts to present day, 1985. I can only assume, I don't think really they say where these Tulsa, Oklahoma movies are supposed to take place, but we'll just say they take place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Cut to, mid-80s, Tulsa, Oklahoma. This one guy, this one guy is the professor, and this one guy and girl who are, kind of the boyfriend, girlfriend, who are students. This one professor guy, they just so happen to be studying, in this film course or whatever the hell this is at some college or whatever. This one teacher is just by chance, right around the time that these Jack the Ripper style murders are starting to happen in their local town. They just so happen to be talking about Jack the Ripper in this film class. They're going to watch Alfred Hitchcock's The Lodger, which I have never seen, in this movie they say it's about Jack the Ripper, which I can only assume is correct. So it's kind of strange how the premise of this movie is like right at the time the college course and the professor is talking about Jack the Ripper for the college class, in this small town, Jack the Ripper style murders are starting to happen, and it makes you wonder, if I can overanalyze this shot on video horror movie, it makes you wonder what happened first. Was it the the fact that this well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but we'll just say this piece of jewelry happened to end up in this town, and that made them start talking about the Ripper, or the fact that the murder happened before they started talking about Jack the Ripper, so I guess that happened first. But anyway, before I talk about any more of the plot, I do want to say, and I always felt this, I think, maybe not so much in the early 2000s, but when I revisited it for the first time, probably since then, 3 weeks ago or some odd, weeks ago or whatever, I thought that, and I thought even more so when I rewatched it again last night, is that unlike, you know, if you saw my review for Blood Cult, you know that I had a lot of complaints about that movie. Big part of the complaints about that movie were like the characters and the people that they got to play the characters. They're just, you know, none of the characters or many of the performers, except for that one chainsaw, you know, Texas Chainsaw Family guy, you know, and none of them except for that one guy did anything for me. One thing about the Ripper that I will say is, like, more or less all of the characters I actually like, and I actually pretty much like all the performers they got to play the characters. And if you've seen my review for Blood Cult, you'll know that I kind of ripped on, reviewing the Ripper, ripped on the main kind of, I don't know, female actress, supposed to be like sexy chick in that movie. She seems like she's 50 years old and whatever, not particularly sexy to me. And what's funny about this movie is that, like, the kind of the lead female character isn't necessarily sexy either, but if I had to choose one of them, I'd probably choose this one, because at least she's, I don't know, got kind of a decent body, I guess. Maybe as a dancer. She like plays a dance instructor, dance teacher in this movie. Maybe she was a dancer in real life. There's an amazing, if you like this kind of stuff, which I don't really care about. I like dance, you know, women dancers' bodies and stuff, but there's like a kind of a mid-80s, you know, goofy ass like dance scene where she's teaching this dance class at the college, presumably the same college that this main character guy works at as well, who's teaching this film course, and they're talking about Jack the Ripper or whatever. But you know, those are the main two characters: the professor and his girlfriend, and then the student guy who's a film buff who knows more about films than the professor, which is kind of, you know, if I went to a film, you know, class, that'd probably be the same thing as well. I'd probably know more than the professor than that guy's girlfriend. And I meant to look it up, but it's very possible that guy's girlfriend is the same girl who'd go on to be in Blood Lake. Was it like 87 or something? It's possible it's that girl. It may be that girl. It may not be that girl. But she reminded me of that the girl, one of the, you know, the side girlfriends or whatever, and of one of the main guys in another shot on video in the 80s and distributed by United Home Video Classic that I first saw. And gosh, it was, yeah, sometime in 2000 or 2001 when that was when I first saw Blood Lake, which I've reviewed on this channel. I've showcased I've reviewed the movie, I've reviewed the DVD, and I've showcased the original North American VHS. But yeah, all the main characters, which I would say are four, you know, two guys and two girls, or two men and two women. I like the main characters. And then later on, towards maybe the second half of this movie, the main professor guy goes and gets some advice from this kind of other, I don't know if he's supposed to be an eccentric professor on campus or whatever, but there's this kind of interesting scene where it looks like it's even Steadicam, or maybe some mock-up version of Steadicam, or, you know, interesting for, you know, a shot on video movie that they're going to have like dialogue scenes where they're actually walking and the camera's moving backwards. And but anyway, this guy who shows up just for this one scene, I thought that character and that performer was kind of funny and kind of a humorous character. And the bit that they give him with giving the, you know, all the books and stuff that he's holding and a Coke and this and that to give to the one guy so he can grab his book, all the shtick that he you know, whoever came up with to do all that stuff. Like, I thought that you know, was kind of cool. So like the majority of like all the characters, unlike my, you know, a take on Blood Cult, I think are, you know, relatively entertaining and relatively well cast and you know, well done, more or less, for all the main people in this movie. So the main premise about this movie is this professor is teaching the film class and talking about Jack the Ripper. His girlfriend has this fancies this freaking brass headboard that looks like it's for a twin mattress, when she's got like a you know, a larger than twin mattress. She wants this twin mattress freaking brass headboard to go with her bigger than twin mattress, and it's just like, what the hell. But anyway, they venture into she's been eyeing this brass headboard for days, weeks, months, whatever. Doesn't quite have was it whole whopping $50 or something? She doesn't have that. She's got to pay in installments of what, $1 a month? I don't know what the hell. This was the 80s, but I didn't think money was that tight. But I guess when you're a dance instructor in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the mid-80s, times were tough. But that brings them to this in the movie, the first time seeing this antique store, which if you've seen Friday the 13th, the series from the late 80s or whatever, the antique store in this movie kind of reminds me of the antique store in Friday the 13th, the television series. But you know, her dragging him there to look, to look at the headboard and say, I wouldn't mind, hint hint, if you bought me this brass headboard for a twin bed to go with my bigger than twin bed. She doesn't say that, but that's the reality of the situation. While they're there, he ends up coming across this funky ass looking devil, satanic, monster ring in this thing, and he's ring holder, and he's like, oh wow, look at that, and he puts this on and wears it for a while, and and I think even the woman, the older woman they got to play the store clerk or the store owner, I think she was even good. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me, but I kind of felt this way the first time I saw it weeks ago or whatever this year, and when I watched it again last night, I'm like, yeah, she's even kind of good. I don't know why I'm so going so easy on this movie on my second viewing, but yeah, she's like, oh, that ring, is found in an alley, and some people want it, then they don't want it, and if you want it, you'll be here to come. You can come get it. If it's here, you can get it. If not, you can't get it if it's here. And then later on, it's there, but someone already sold it. But if you wait until noon, a couple minutes, you can buy it. It's just like all this garbage and whatever. But anyway, the whole premise of this movie is this professor who's teaching about Jack the Ripper ends up getting this crazy ring, which as the movie wears on, he's doing more of his professor, film class, Jack the Ripper class or whatever. He's doing more research, and he's realizing that, oh my God, this very well might be the original Jack the Ripper's ring. How it would end up in North America is anyone's guess. Like nearly 100 years later or whatever, or it was, yeah, nearly 100 years later. I think it said like 1888 or something was the year that Jack the Ripper stuff was supposed to have happened. So, did I already mention, I think I kind of briefly mentioned that right at the beginning of, right the first scene of this movie where in the film class or whatever, they're talking about Jack the Ripper, some student informs the professor that, God, there was a Jack the Ripper style murder last night. Did you hear about that? So as I said earlier, that there's that kind of stuff happening. So one can only assume someone that previously wore the ring, the murder was blamed on or whatever, and then so now this professor gets just like obsessed with this ring. He ends up buying this ring, and then when he, like he'll put it on or whatever, and then he'll have a nightmare about killing his girlfriend that night, and then the students the next day will inform him about there was an actual murder of a woman in the town, another Jack the Ripper style murder. So it's kind of like every time he goes to sleep, it reminds me of another movie. I couldn't place it. There's so many movies, so many, not enough brain cells as I age and stuff to remember everything. But it reminds me of another movie when someone went to sleep, then people are in danger because, it's kind of like almost a little bit of Forbidden Planet too, like, the id or whatever. But what ends up happening is this professor, every time he goes to sleep, he has a nightmare about some woman being killed, whether it's his girlfriend or whatever. And women are actually dying in the real world. And meanwhile, he's got this ring, and he can't get this ring off. And it's just about all the trials and tribulations and women. Jack the Ripper, of course, famously well known for dispatching women. That's pretty much all that ends up being dispatched in this movie. Although, I think that those are the only people, human beings that he kills is women in this movie. So that's the basic premise of The Ripper. I gotta tell you, after seeing it again for the second time this year in 2025, I mean, for being a shot-on-video movie made in the mid-'80s in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I really think that, I didn't think too much of Blood Cult, but I think by the time I don't know how many movies they did before Blood Cult or whatever, but by the time they got to The Ripper the following year or later on that year after filming Blood Cult or shooting Blood Cult, I mean, I think they're upping their game a little bit, and I really think The Ripper is, for being a shot-on-video movie, a relatively competent premise. And another thing I talked about, one of my only compliments when I reviewed, I'm pretty sure I talked about this when I reviewed Blood Cult, was that for being a shot-on-video, made exclusively for the home video market, shot-on-video, like, the best thing probably about Blood Cult is that, compared to a lot of incompetent just home movies that people make with just a VHS camera or SVHS camera or whatever, like The Ripper, or, Blood Cult and The Ripper have relatively, competent, videography, framing, shooting, framing of stuff, then even competent editing. And like I said, that one dialogue scene with that one, professor talking to professor, like there's even some, like they're talking and walking and, the camera's, going backwards. So, I mean, it's like, it was the strangest thing last night when I rewatched it again, that I was just like, I was just kind of, believe it or not, getting engrossed in this shot on video movie, and like the fact that it was shot on video was just fading, as I already said earlier, fading into the background, and I was just kind of having fun with it this time around. So, yeah, for being what it is, it's relatively competently done. I think a competent storyline that kind of unfolds relatively organically. My biggest complaint about the movie was just the overly long opening scene, with the supposed to be like in the 1880s or whatever in London or whatever. I guess they just wanted to milk the production value or whatever. You can't blame them. But yeah, I mean, for being what this is, I think it's done relatively well. Obviously, something I have to address is, this movie on the cover, as you've seen, was billed Tom Savini as the Ripper. And what's funny is when my memory of this wasn't what the reality is, which is my memory was that Tom Savini, obviously the Ripper throughout the course of the movie is this kind of shadowy figure in a cloak and the kind of the Jack the Ripper hat and all this stuff, and usually in very in shadows and stuff, running around doing his deeds. Well, it turns out, having revisited it now twice this year in 2025, turns out Tom Savini only shows up for the very end. Like, they just have some double be the Ripper throughout, the whole course of the movie, and like Tom Savini probably showed up just for one night. I can only assume everything that Tom Savini's in this movie, which is the end scene, was just done in one night. I mean, I can only assume that. And so that was one thing that I didn't remember at all. I'm like, God, I thought Tom Savini was in it a lot more than just the end, but obviously they could probably just only afford to have him for the end. Another thing that I thought of, and I didn't really mention with this movie, is obviously they're going for, when they're making these movies, shot on video to go exclusively to the home video market, they're really trying to capitalize on the gore stuff, and Blood Cult was very much the same way, where it was all just kind of exploitative gore and stuff, and very much the same with this movie. Although, as I think I talked about in my review for Blood Cult, the repetitive nature of just, the throat cut in this movie is one of the things I'd complain about. Like, that was just kind of repetitive, just presumably using the same kind of appliance on all the women just to cut the throat and then cut their guts out. But what I was saying is, like, when I watched this in the early 2000s, I kind of just assumed, since Tom Savini was in it, that he did the gore. Well, I don't think Tom Savini did the gore, which is interesting. And the gore, if he didn't do it, maybe he did it and didn't, and maybe he did the gore, didn't take credit or something. But I mean, it kind of looks like Tom Savini gore. It's really well done gore. So in a way, I have a hard time believing he didn't do the gore, especially if he's a part of the production. But in the credits, I don't think he's credited as doing the gore. So it's kind of confusing to me. But if you like seeing fake, throat, slashings and fake, I hope fake, disemboweling, cutting out the innards and stuff, this might be right up your alley. Being pushing 50 these days, I'm not so much of a gore hound. I'm much more of a just, whatever, I don't know what the hell I am, but when I was a teenager, it was more about gore, and nowadays, I've seen gore and it's kind of old hat or whatever. I'm more about just atmosphere now and brass headboards and, just relatively fit, kind of not particularly attractive woman with short hair in this movie. And it's just, it's kind of funny, and this is the case with a lot of movies, a lot of horror movies, that kind of like Planet of Dinosaurs, like that hot blonde chick who kind of had some bustage, she dies right at the very beginning and gets eaten by the dinosaur in the lake or whatever. Like some of the most attractive women in this movie are the women that just show up for a scene and then get killed. And it's kind of like, how come like you couldn't put like one of the more attractive women in like the bigger parts? But we can only assume that maybe they weren't so confident in the acting department. But so if you're expecting a whole movie full of Tom Savini, you're going to be disappointed. Tom Savini only shows up at the end. It's kind of cool that he's got these these contact lenses in, which I can only assume are his, that he made for himself or something, which really make him look creepy or whatever. Obviously the professor wearing having putting this ring on, and it kind of claimed the ring kind of claimed the professor, and is the professor the Ripper, and is the Ripper killing through the professor's body? You got to watch it to find out or whatever. But I will say, very much with like the end of Death Cult, this movie has kind of a bittersweet kind of is that the right term? I don't know if that's the right term. We'll just say sad kind of tragic ending, just like the ending of Death Cult. I don't think I spoiled that in my review. I won't spoil it in this review. So more or less, I guess that's my review for Tom Savini as the Ripper. I probably blabbed way too much in the beginning of this video before I even started talking about the movie, but if you've seen my reviews and my videos, that can happen. It seems like it's happening more and more. I don't know. Like I say, I might be cognitively declining in my older age, but what the hell. When I gave it my first rewatch of the year weeks ago, I didn't think much of it, and all of a sudden now I wish it was still, if the Blu-ray was still $20, I might actually would have got it, but right now it's a whole $3 more, so I might not get it. But we'll see if it goes down to 20 again. I definitely prefer the Ripper more than Blood Cult. Oh, that leads me to my star rating. I can go as high, I was thinking about it last night, I can go as high as 2 stars out of 4 stars for the Ripper. I think it's got some kind of, I don't know what the hell it is, but some kind of mid-80s Tulsa, Oklahoma charm to it. I think that as I said, the characters and the performers are relatively interesting. I guess I identify with the films, the film geek student who, knows more about movies than the teacher is teaching his class, and how he kind of pesters his girlfriend to watch stuff, and pesters the teacher to watch stuff. And honestly, the relationship between the film student geek and his girlfriend is kind of reminiscent of the relationship between this movie, huge movie fanatic, and his girlfriend by the name of Beth. Like kind of like her complaining about sometimes if I get too excited watching a movie, or even watching a movie, and I'll talk about that's the guy from this, or this guy did the effects for that, or the guy who did the music for this. Do you recognize the music? Oh yeah, Harry Manfredini. He did the Friday 13th, for watching Deep Star 6 or something like. So it was interesting how like so much of my relationship with Beth kind of mirrored the relationship that the film student guy has with his own girlfriend, and kind of forcing his interest in movies onto the unsuspecting victim girlfriend, if you will. So those were little anecdotes and stuff that I kind of appreciated, and indeed I think a lot of film buffs that would possibly watch this movie would appreciate as well. So I guess that pretty much does it for, I can only assume overly long, apologies, review of Tom Savini as the Ripper. Like when I watched it weeks ago, I didn't plan on getting the Blu-ray. That's why I don't have it. And now, having revisited it again, I kind of want the Blu-ray. But I definitely don't want the Blu-ray of Blood Cult, because that is, if you've seen my review, that's more what you kind of think of when you think of shot-on-video garbage, and more or less kind of is shot-on-video garbage. So I guess that pretty much does it for this review. Hope you guys enjoyed. If anyone who watched all the way to the end, thank you so much for doing that. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.